Apparently, it's been 9 years since Joe Hill has released a standalone novel. And today we're going to talk about the novel that he's released, and that is King Sorrow, which is categorized as horror, but honestly, it's about a bloody dragon, and there's actual trolls in it, not just internet trolls, actual like trolls of lore. And there's also some Arthurian lore in there too, like Gwendolyn and Arthur and all of that stuff. So I would say this is a dark fantasy. Typically Joe Hill does write horror, but this is kind of like on that edge of where I would put with Joe Abercrombie's The Devils. It's like a dark fantasy. And so was the wait worth it? Well, this book is quite the journey. It's huge. It was one that I could not put down. So you follow a group of 6 friends, and they meet at Rackham College. All of them except for the one character, Gwen, who works for this character, Colin, his family. And her family has worked for him for like ever. The main character is Arthur Oakes, and Arthur's mother is currently in jail due to some political activism that she had been involved in that went awry, and a man died. And so she is in jail currently. A man got shot and they blamed her and she went to jail. So Arthur, it starts out the book, is visiting his mother. And while he's there, he does something that he doesn't really think much of. There's a girl there who's going to see her mother, and she's wearing a Guns N' Roses shirt, and they're not allowed to wear any kind of shirts that have guns on them when they go in to visit people. And so he gives her his sweatshirt, which was an innocuous act and didn't seem like anything should come from it. However, his family of people end up being terrible humans, and they are drug dealers. And Arthur had left an article about how he works with all these rare books that he has access to that was in the pocket of his sweatshirt. These people find out, this Jane Nicewander and her boyfriend Ronnie, and then they decide they're going to blackmail Arthur, and they want him to go steal all these priceless books. This makes him physically ill. And they want basically $60,000 worth of rare books that they can sell off, and that he's going to have to give for them. Otherwise, they're just going to make his life a living hell. And they have people on the inside of the jail that will murder his mother. So that's a pretty good motivator to steal these books. He doesn't want to, but he's in a situation that absolutely sucks. And then it turns out there's this one book, which is the Journals of Enoch Crane. And Enoch Crane was sentenced to die because, he toiled and had deals with the devil or something of that sort. And this book, too, is also bound in Enoch Crane's own skin. There's some really weird stuff in there. Some really weird stuff. Possibly about summoning dragons. Okay, so at some point, when his friends find out what's going on, they're like, "What? We need to help you with this. This is not okay. Like, people like these people will never stop. Once you actually steal that amount of money that they want, like the $60,000, they're going to keep doing it." On a strange and mysterious night at Colin Wren's estate. So there's several characters in this. There's twins, Donna and Van. There is Gwen, or Gwendolyn, who works for the family. She's always there. She hangs out with them. Then you have Arthur. You also have Allie. Colin, his grandfather, has a huge estate, a lot of money, and he has this cabinet of curiosities. And his grandfather has been a collector of all things strange and esoteric. And in the cabinet of curiosities is a lot of occult items. And on a strange, mysterious evening, everybody gets all effed up. They get all high and whatnot and drunk and whatever else. Arthur ends up stealing that Journal of Enoch Crane, and he's going to give it to the Nicewander to sell. She's going to probably get like 20 grand for it or whatever, something along those lines, which is, it's worth way more than that. It's priceless. But the night he takes it, they all have the book over at his friend Colin's at this estate called the Briars. And Colin starts reading through it. Before he had explained to them and shown them some weird, like, occult stuff about, and talked about these different experiments about how belief conjuring certain entities into existence. Like, his grandfather was involved in some weird stuff where they did these experiments. I think it was called, like, the Goblin experiment, where you create a ghost and then bring it into existence, even though this ghost has never happened. They just like made up the parameters of what this ghost would be like and believed in it, and then brought it into existence. And they explain how like magic is particular to the people who cast it. There's no wrong or right. There's like not really a set way to do a certain thing. It's particular to you or to me. So on this night, Colin's going through this book and he finds writings about how to summon a dragon named King Sorrow. And King Sorrow has all this weird history over the ages, going back to like biblical times and before, like King Herod and all sorts of different people. Well, on this night, they grab several different artifacts, they smoke a lot of pot, and they end up summoning this dragon to take care of the problem that is the drug dealers Jane Nicewander and Ronnie, I think it's Volpe is his name, and they make a deal with the dragon. Also, when they're summoning this dragon, like there's music, there's incense. The incense is basically the pot they're smoking, which is this like blue pot Callan's grandfather had got that was like government quality weed or whatever. So it was like super potent. Each person in the summoning has their own part to play. Like Gwen is like freeing these like butterflies that had been on display and they start flying around. And then this other girl, Allie, is like playing the piano, and the twins are playing a game of war of cards. And Arthur, he sees a man outside in the snow in the main winter, and he knows that he has to follow him and he has to go get King Sorrow's meal to bring King Sorrow forth. And there is a line in the book when this is happening. And that line is, "The dark man fled across the snow, and Arthur Oakes followed." Yeah? No? Well, for those of you who have read The Dark Tower by Stephen King, his dad, that line may be quite familiar. And I love that. I love that that was in there. It was great. So they summon this dragon. And the dragon's like, all right, on Easter, I'll be able to come through. Because it takes quite a bit for this dragon to come through from the long dark, which is where he stays and waits and lives until he is summoned forth. And so on Easter, he's going to kill them. And then, so this all comes to happen and whatnot, you know, and after this happens, they find out that the deal was much more than they bargained for. It's not just one and done. They have to choose someone to die every year. And so starts our story of what this does to these people. And even though they're choosing, you know, horrible people to die, like eventually it corrupts the group. They somewhat splinter. This just causes so much emotional trauma and stress, the different ways that the people in the group deal with it. And then at some point, trying to get out from under King Sorrow, and if they'll ever be able to break free from him, like, because there doesn't seem to be a way to break free. The freedom is for when you die, or he eats your heart, or whatever he does. He gets you in the end. When Arthur was following this dark man across the snow, when he caught him, that man was Enoch Crane. And it's like this weird hallucinatory experience of what happens when they do summon this dragon. And Enoch Crane told him, in the end, King Sorrow gets his. Like, you may think that you hold the cards, but you really don't. Like, everybody's gonna die. But do they? Do they all die? Well, you know, books that are really good, they kill their darlings. So, several people in this will die. But some might make it to the end. Now, this book is sprawling and intense, and it follows the story of these people from like their early 20s up until they're about 50 years old. And then what happens in order to get out from under the talon, I was going to say thumb, the talon of King Sorrow. It's vast, emotional. It's a gripping story. I almost want to say it might be the best book I read this year. It's worth the pages. It's worth the read. It's a dark fantasy. It's gripping. It is good versus evil versus so many shades of gray that's going on. It's the ties that bind, the friendships people have, the self-hatred, the self-loathing, substance abuse to deal with the horrors that are happening to these people and what they put forth in the world and the not being able to escape this dragon. The character growth throughout the story, the paths that they take, the wrong turns, the right turns, finding light in all of this darkness, the way people deal with this stuff, some where they'll help others and some where they just go down a very dark road. The gamut of human emotions and things such as greed that come into play and power and so many different things. The writing is very descriptive. It really pulls you into the story. Like I said, it's in that vein of kind of like, if you liked The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, I feel like you would probably like this book a lot too, which I thought The Devils was an amazing read. This one also, amazing. I absolutely loved it. This was a 5-star read for me. Just a very emotional roller coaster of a book. Sometimes it's hard when you do like the over the generations of time and whatnot, but I thought he did really good with like bits and pieces of stuff that was relevant in those time frames as you're coming from like, I think it was like the 80s up into present day 2000s to where like we are right now almost. So if you like dark fantasy and stories about dragons and a binding contract that doesn't seem like you get to leave the contract except for on pain of death, but maybe there's some way to defeat a dragon. But the dragon's pretty powerful, so good luck. And I think the moral of the story here is never make a deal with the dragon, because they'll probably trick you, and then in the end, they're going to eat your heart and maybe burn you to death. So don't do it. If that sounds interesting to you at all, definitely check it out. I would highly recommend it. It's a really big book, so if you don't like to read huge books, then, you know, obviously probably not for you. But if you don't mind a 900 plus page book, I think it was about 900 something pages or close to it, then King Sorrow might just be for you. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.